All right, back in the basement again today. Really quick video on shoes and footwear, comparing the Vivo Primus Lite to the Tolos Archetypes. I've worn each of these for a week's worth of training. Programming was generally the same, so did all the same movements. And I wanted to give you some feedback because I've been getting a lot of questions from people asking how do they compare to each other. And to be honest, they're very similar. At the end of the day, they're both great shoes to train in. I would highly recommend either one, depending on some things on your end and your own personal preferences. So again, full disclosure, this is not going to be a full in-depth review. I am not a footwear guy. I'm not going to get into shoes reviews and all that stuff. I don't know much about feet, which is probably why I don't respond to your DMs asking for feet pics. I just don't get it. But when I have questions or need to know about shoes, I typically go and watch That Fit Friend, so Jake, or Joel from as many reviews as possible. Great channels, a lot of footwear videos on there. I will link them in the description box if I remember to do so during editing, So anyways, the breakdown of these, at the end of the day, like I said, they're very similar. Some key differences on these, number one is the price. The Vivos retail for $160, the Tolos retail for $115. So if you're simply looking for a good minimalist training shoe that's going to be more budget friendly, the Tolos win in that regard. In terms of other things on here, how they are for training, they perform almost identically. With the actual Vivos themselves, I found that the toe box for me was a little bit wider, so I was able to get these true to size. So typically I wear a size 12.5 these days. My feet fit best in these because there's a lot of room in the toe box, which is something that I like because, again, I like to root and kind of try to grip the floor when I'm doing things like squatting and deadlifting, where a lot of other shoes, which are more narrow up here, don't allow me to do. I tend to have a little bit wider feet, so the widest part of my foot is about 4 3/4 of an inch, which lines up great with these in this size, so they fit really well. But if you like a snugger fit or you have more narrow feet, I think you probably will find these a little bit roomy, and you might potentially want to size down, especially if you're not used to this kind of minimalist style shoe wear. Now, the Tolos, on the other hand, they are still wide. They do have a lot of room in the toe box. However, I found that they did not fit true to size for me. Again, based off the size of my foot, I found that it was really tight in the edges here. And even though this measures roughly the same as the Vivos, the bottom sole on this kind of turns up a little bit earlier than they do in the Vivos, so I found it was a little bit tight. I found my toes were at the front of the toe box, so I didn't have as much room. So I ended up exchanging these for a half a size bigger, a size 13 here, and they fit tremendously better. I like them a lot. So either one of these could be great. Again, if you have wider feet, I would probably size up half a size if you're on the border, if you're looking at the Tolos. But overall, again, great fit. Another difference with these is when you're putting these on, these Vivos are more like a regular shoe where they have like a tongue that's a little bit separate. So it comes from the bottom, you have the sidewalls that come up. The Tolos themselves tend to be like one full piece, so everything is kind of sewn together. And they do have shoelaces on here if you want a tighter fit, but really you could use these untied. And if you like your shoes untied, the Vivos might be better for you because I found that I had to tie these several times per training session when wearing them. They just kept coming undone, whereas the Tolos stayed tied all the time, although again, it's not really necessary. The downside to that for me on the Tolos is that the opening for your foot to go in, I found was tighter. There's like a stiff, rigid piece in the back heel to add to the rigidity of the shoe, which is great, but just getting my foot in and out of these shoes was more difficult than something like this, which has a lot more room and stretch and able to get my foot in and out of. So when using the Tolos to getting one on and off, I found I really had to pull up on this strap on the front to kind of make that space a little bit bigger and pull back on the side on the back, and that way I could get my foot in and out, which was, again, much better once I got that half of size bigger. So the Vivos win in terms of ease of getting on and off, but the Tolos win because they stay on a lot better without coming untied like the Vivos do for me. Now, in terms of something that probably doesn't matter to most unless you're specifically looking for a white pair of shoes like I was, is although I got the white Primus Lite Vivos, they do not look white when comparing to the Tolo shoes. These are a much more pure white, and this is more of an off-white, an ivory, or what I tell my kids, it's like a marshmallow white or a glow-in-the-dark white. So anything that glows in the dark, those stickers, plastics, it's kind of got a little bit of a different tint to it. And I know Jake, that fit friend who's done a long-term review on these Vivos, has said that his white shoes have actually started to yellow. But both look great overall in terms of when you're training and wearing them, and I just like how they look. And the fact they match my gym is nice, but it's not something that's really necessary. I got my wife a different, more socially acceptable colorway of her Vivos, and she likes those as well. The sole types are a little bit different. I mean, they're both flat at the end of the day. The Vivos tend to be a little bit more flat, I think, where there's some more texture on the Tolos. Personally speaking, I found that both grip well for squats and deadlifts. On bench, I actually give the edge slightly to the Vivos. I find that my feet just don't slip as much. I don't know why it is. They look very similar, material feels very similar, but I just found I got a little bit better of a grip on bench with the Vivos, which was a minor positive. So it wasn't anything that would say, oh, these are unwearable because they slip around. They still offer fantastic grip for all three main lifts. Again, the Vivo for me was just a tad bit better in that regard. In terms of overall aesthetics, for the most part, I would say the Tolos win hand down. And what I mean by that is these look like something that I could wear in a social setting outside of the gym, and they actually look really nice. So they're very fashionable in my opinion for the most part. I don't really like the gold logo right here. That's just a personal preference of mine. But otherwise, these are something that I would wear out and about, no problem, and probably not get too many sideways looks. Whereas if I wear these out and about, these are a little bit not as socially acceptable, especially in this color, again, because of the white coloring, because of the wider toe box up front and how it looks. Some might say that these look more like Ronald McDonald type shoes, where again, these look more like a standard shoe. So depending on what you're going for, something to wear in and out of the gym, personally, I would probably go with the Tolos in that regard. Now, when it comes down to it, like I said, they're very similar in how they perform. There's a few minor differences. The main things for me is gonna come down to just really the toe box and how much room you need if you have really wide feet or not. That can be offset by sizing up in the Tolos. If you're annoyed by tying your shoelaces, the Vivos are a little bit more annoying in that regard. The Tolos don't even really need them. But I find that if I'm picking one to train in, if I had to choose one, I would probably go Vivos just because I feel like they're a little bit more minimal in terms of the actual material. And again, I like a little bit more room up in my toe box that I have in these as is. But if I had to pick one to do both with training and kind of go and wear outside, I would definitely go Tolos in that regard. But the nice thing for me is I have both and I can wear both and I'll continue to do so. But again, if you're on a budget or something like that, you're looking at a difference of $160 versus $115. And these are probably something you're not gonna see as frequently just yet as they just came out versus the Vivos, which tend to be like the new it thing. So you're probably gonna see a lot of people wearing these. So depending on what you're looking at, both are great. Highly recommend both. Recommend both Jake at That Fit Friend and Joel from as many reviews as possible if you want more better insight. More better insight. You like that one, I know you do. But at the end of the day, I enjoy both of these for training, and if you're on the fence of either one, I would highly recommend going for it, especially if you're interested in good, solid, minimalist shoes where you can squat, bench, and deadlift in, and also look somewhat fashionable depending on what your fashion sense is. If you have any other questions I didn't answer, which I'm sure you probably do because I didn't answer a lot, leave it in the comments section below. And in the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and stay big.
Wait, tell us a little bit about the shoes.
Nothing.
What did Dada say in the video?